Alright, let me just restart my timer here. And let's go over to the left side of the screen. Oh, wait. Hold on. Okay, for a second I thought I had, named things wrong in my camera software here. Okay, so left side of the screen. Let's continue on with our renaming and refactoring, since we might as well do it now while it's on our mind and get rid of some of that, what I would call technical debt. So this initial canvas width, initial canvas height, and same thing with this. So we just want the names to be kind of like the same. So let's start off with these guys first. Let's use some token highlighting there to just see where they are. And this is the initial width of the actual tile map, right? And so now we have variables for the initial tile map width and the initial canvas width. So maybe I want to make a note that this is initial width and tile map. Or actually, initial width, we can do ini dot of tile map. I can do something like that. I'm just gonna make a little comment of what the name previously was, because it may be helpful later if I don't erase all instances of this. And then we're gonna call it ini like that. So initial tile width like that, correct? Yeah. But then why is this called? And let's look at this for a second. So VP0, that is on our canvas. So I'm afraid that we may have been conflating the what we've been talking about and writing the code. I'm afraid we might have been mixing up the tile map and the canvas. So 640 by 640, if I remember, definitely was that buffer of the actual tile map data. So attach canvas to DOM. That's the. Okay, so is that? Oh, okay, so is that actually 640 by 640? Okay, so let me change this back really quick and think about what's what here. And that's kind of why I do this and have these very strict variable namings, because I want to make sure I know exactly what something means when I look at it. And right now, attach canvas to DOM, so that would be the initial width and height of the canvas. And it's also here, so that's definitely the initial canvas size. Okay, and so I was wrong there when I typed that. This is definitely the canvas size. So let's right there, and then what we'll do is we'll do initial canvas width. Okay, so we're gonna rename it to initial canvas like that, and then same thing right here. We're gonna go canvas like that, and we're just gonna do that everywhere. So let me just take this right here, just paste that in there, paste that in there. Since we're already here, we might as well line things up like that. Obviously, it takes up more room, but then I can more quickly look at this and examine it and make sure that both these variables are different variables, and one is width and one is height. Okay, and then over here, same thing. So underscore canvas and then width and height. And then we want to change these as well. So we're going to put in a comment here. We're going to put the old variable name in a comment, so we still have a trace of what that was all about. But it's just that when I'm highlighting tokens in the source code, I want them to all be the same. And we'll do a little find and replace here and see what we can find in the source code. Alright, so find next. Okay, so this is going to be the initial canvas width and height. That's what we decided to name that, so let's do that here. Okay. Let's keep on going. Okay, so it looks like it's just these two places. So I'm not really using that global anywhere. That's what it looks like, which is fine by me. Okay, the width and the height. The initial canvas width, the initial canvas height. Okay, then we want to look at, we're going to control 0 here. Let's look at the top screen, make sure we didn't screw anything up when we just made those changes. Still looks good. And the initial tile map width and height, we're going to take that, put that into a comment as well. Okay, and then we're going to highlight these, so use some token highlighting. See where else it occurs in the code. So we're using map width and map height right now, and that's coming from here. But remember, we were going to call this. So let me control 0, clear my highlighting. Use 2 different colors here just in case. Okay, so these guys I was going to call initial tile map width and height, but use the shorthand. So, right, because I want this cluster of variables and this cluster of variables to kind of have a similar pattern going on. So we'll do that, and the way we've kind of written that, the reason why we didn't call, the reason why we didn't call these variables right here, why we didn't put a TIL in front of it, is because then it would be a little bit redundant because we already have this. Well, okay, you know what? No, it's more like arbitrary. But I know what that means, so I'm not going to dig that deep and try to fix that. I'm going to try to be as rigid as possible within reason for what I consider reasonable. Okay, so let's keep on changing this. So we know that these variables right here are going to be this here. And then down here, instead of map width and map height, right, we're going to use it like that. And then these guys that are our comments, we're going to just do that. Okay. So now these all match, so that's important. And the other thing we want to do is we put these in the comments. So okay, sorry, you might have not seen that. These match, right? All these match, and then in the comments we put this here. We want to control F really quick and see where else that might be referenced, and it looks like it isn't referenced anywhere, so that looks good. What else? So we're gonna save that, and we're gonna look at our code, or not our code, but our example up here. Make sure nothing has changed. That looks good. I'm going to be paranoid. I'm going to open up my console. Nothing going on there. And I'm going to go over to my code. And I'm going to control 0. And I'm going to highlight all the important things that I've kind of changed, right? I'm going to go here, 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 and here with my token highlighting rules. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scan through this code really quick. And look for anything that looks unusual, that may have not been like refactored out, right? So okay, there's my token highlighting. That looks good. I know I did stuff with the canvas size, so that just want to look at that. Keep on scrolling through and just kind of look around and see if there's anything unusual. And I'd say no, everything looks pretty good there. There's nothing unusual. So let's control 0 and continue on with creating that canvas adapter. Or not the canvas adapter, but the user input singleton. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add an event listener. So add event listener to HTML 5 canvas. So I really doubt that that's a shortcut, but let's see if it's a shortcut. Not a shortcut. So I've done this a few times before, so So sometimes every time I do it again, I want to like add more shortcuts so that I can find reference material again easier the next time I do this. And then sometimes, you know, the longer your shortcut is, the less likely it is to collide with something. So sometimes, you know, you have these very specific shortcuts, but there's more search space the larger this phrase is, right? So we want to try something with some low search space because, first of all, it might already be a shortcut in my knowledge base. And second of all, if it's not, well, it probably should be a shortcut. So what we could do is add an event listener like this, and then have some type of prompt that'll ask us what kind to add. Object.add event listener key press my script. So I already have like a thing for that. What I'd really like, though, is something that, you know, asks me what kind of listener. So I'm gonna find where that code is. So this is some... If I go over to my other monitor, I can see that in my shortcuts. We got object.add event listener, and then it's right here. And key press, I'm not even sure if that's JavaScript or not. Might be. It's probably. Okay. So what I'd really like here is I'm going to put that in a comment, and then I'm going to have a little prompt here. Pick, add, JS, add listener, like maybe that. No, add listener JS dash keyboard or mouse, right? Because that's really what I want. Eventually I want a keyboard or a mouse listener. And so we'll take this first part and, well, actually this already says keyboard a listener. Add event listener, but this one doesn't. Okay, so I'm going to take that part and go like that, and then add listener JS and then keyboard like that. And then this part here, I'm going to take that, put that there. Okay, now I'm going to go up to the top of my shortcuts and put this up there. Okay, add keyboard event listener, and then we have this, and then add listener JS keyboard, and then we're going to go add mouse event listener, right? Keep that same format, and then add listener JS, and then mouse, and then I'm not sure exactly how that code works, so I'll paste a line there. And so for if we type one of these guys, these specific things, we're just going to say same prompt as usual as before. So pick, add a listener JS, and then mouse or keyboard. Okay, we'll indent that there. Maybe put a little date stamp of when I made this. 05, 08. So HTML5 listener, and then maybe something like over here we might want to write like canvas listener, and then maybe if we don't have a shortcut called canvas event, we might want something like that, canvas event. Then canvas event listener. Add canvas event listener. Okay, just some shortcuts that, you know, next time we have to do this, I don't want to have to look it up. I just want it like at my fingertips. So let's go in a Google search really quick and see how that's done. I've done this in some code, so I could reference some code to find it, but let's just do a Google search for it. So canvas event listener. Canvas event listener. Add event listener to do canvas event listener. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna guess what I can do is something like so looking at this reference, I'm just going to assume that the correct syntax for this is something like my canvas object, right? My canvas object dot add event listener. I thought it's going to be a click event like that, and then my handler function, right? And then my handler function goes there, and it's a okay. So on our canvas, right, we're going to add a event listener for click, and then we're going to have a handler function referenced here that will be called every time it click event happens. So this is like a callback function is another word for this, or but a handler or event handler function is another way we could call this, or another terminology for what that is. Okay. So now that I have that, I'm just going to take this little chunk here, and we'll go over to the other screen here, and we'll just paste it like that, and then we'll just change the parts that I've made all capital. So canvas.add event listener, and then my handler function. So input adapter singleton. So that tells me from the name of this class that it sounds like I want my handler function to kind of like be inside of this class. So we'll call it click handler, click event handler. Actually, you know what? I'm going to call it native click event handler, right? Because this click handler is not going to get my special event object that I made earlier, right? It's not going to get one of these guys, right? It's not going to get a new global event object. It's not going to get this, right? This is, you know, native JavaScript code, so we're going to call it native click event handler, and then this handler is going to look at the event and create one of these objects or populate one of these objects, and then send it off to my other objects that need some type of event message, right? So I'm going to create my own event message so that if I want to reuse this code in, say, like SFML or OpenGL that have like different ways of sending events, I've kind of already used this adapter singleton as a way to separate the platform-specific code from my code. Okay, so native click handler, and then down here inside this function, we'll have a function called native click handler, and then it's going to take a thing called EVT, or lately I've been calling it just EVE for event. But since we've already decided this is a native click handler, maybe we should call it NAT for native and then EVE for event. That actually makes some sense, so that's what I will call it. I'm going to go over to my variable list because I don't think I have a variable for that. So I'm going to go up here, type NAT EVE for native event. Nope. And then Eve like that. Actually, NAT native event. And then NAT EVE. And then paste line. And then a little definition for what this means. Okay. Okay. So now we have that entry. So if we ever encounter we ever encounter that variable, we'll know what it means. I gotta stop recording and start recording again.